So we're going to jump into recommendations. We'll go through kind of the history of the growth of the district. We'll go through the process. We'll go through every recommendation, and then what the follow-up steps will be to engage the community. And we've already started hearing from many of you, so thank you for that already. Starting off, I want everybody to see, because we have a lot of people that haven't been in the district for 20 years. And I know that because your houses weren't here before. So if you look back in 2000, we were only about 5,000 students, a little over 5,000 students in 2000, about 1 million square feet of educational space or total space footprint for the district. And then you can see the schools there. Flash forward to 2020 or 2021, and we're 20,000 students more. We added about 4.5 million square feet of educational space, and we've multiplied our schools. Obviously, we're now, instead of one high school, we got 4 high schools. Before we were intermediate and middle. Now we're 6 middle schools, 19 elementary schools. The 20th, Berkshire, is opening up this next year. So just a lot of growth, and just kind of 2 maps that I know this one's a little old, but it was taken back in 2000, so that's why it's old. But you can see the difference between the schools and the campuses as they exist as we've grown. I want to show you a couple aerials too, just to kind of reemphasize that point. This is an aerial in the southern portion of the district, so you see the blue lines kind of highlighting the high school feeder areas. You can see 287 and 35 and the tip of Alliance here. This is 2001, when we only had about those 6,000 students. And you can see there's not a lot of development. And if we flash forward here to last year, 2020, look at all that growth that comes in, and all those housing and roads and development, commercial development coming into that area. It's just remarkable to see that happen over 20 years. We go to the east side of the district, another place that's grown really fast in the last 20 years for us. Again, Roanoke Trophy Club. You can now see all of Alliance Airport. You can see Texas Motor Speedway. Again, 2001, this is when that aerial was taken. And if we hit the button and flash forward to 2020, again, you see all that commercial development, that residential development coming in. And so the last thing I just want to show you is the overall snapshot of the district. And of course, this is the existing boundaries for the high school. I know you can't see the detail here, but one of the things that's important to know is, again, this is when we had about 6,000 students, so there wasn't a lot of housing developments out there. And look at what we're tracking today. This is as of this week. That's 91, a little over 90 different housing developments that we're tracking as far as 2021. And there's actually 1 or 2 that came online in the last couple of weeks that we don't even have on the map yet. So we're working through that. Now, some of these, especially over in Trophy Club, they're starting to build out, and once they're completely built out, we roll them off the map. And this is actually doubled, I think, in the time that since you got here, Dr. Warren. I think when Dr. Warren got here, he was about 43, 45, and now we're pushing 90 plus development. So really a big challenge for us. I know it's a challenge for you as a parent with kids and trying to get them to get to the school that you want to go to. Unfortunately, as fast growth districts, that just sometimes has to be changed to help with the growth that we're dealing with. Here's the attendance boundary process. This is the process we're going through. Just kind of walk through this with you. One thing I want to note before we even get into this is the 2 key elements that any school district has to provide. I mean, the most critical things that we provide as a school district is we have to keep our kids safe, first and foremost. And in this year of COVID, and quarantine and pandemic and all that obviously rings true. And then we have to educate the kids. And so those 2 things have to be taken into account, that if you're in an overcrowded environment, it's more difficult to do those things to the level and to the level of excellence that Dr. Warren always talks about, to that level of excellence if you're in an overcrowded environment. So that's the 2 major overriding things that we talk about here, is keep them safe and make sure they're getting educated properly. So we go through this process of reviewing our statistics, our future projections. We're a school district that has a demographer that's a vendor for us, comes on board and does quarterly updates with the board. Those are on the website. You can go back. Usually we keep about 4 or 5 years at a time. You can go back and see that growth as it's being projected. So we look at those projections. We spend a lot of time with Templeton demographics, going through that, especially in the fall as we prepare for a year where we have to change boundaries, which usually happens about every year. Every now and then, like last year, we have to skip a year. But about every year, we're having to go through this. Here's the strategies, and these strategies have been developed by using outreach to the community, getting that feedback, and we've done this several times over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, and every time these are the main points that come up that everybody wants us to emphasize is prevent that campus overcrowding, to make sure that we're minimizing the impact of future boundary changes, as well as that impact on those students. Obviously, you don't want to move a student and have to move them back. Sometimes that happens. And then maintain student-teacher ratios, keep those class sizes appropriate, and improve the efficiency of the schools, how well we operate as a balanced school district in those scenarios. We then met with district leadership. We had a committee of probably, I think it was about 15 folks, curriculum folks, data services folks, technology, transportation, looking at all the angles to see what are the best options out there. That we then go to the school principals, those campus principals that are either losing students or potentially gaining students one way or the other, depending on how the board votes on it. So we engage them, we go through that discussion. And ultimately what we did this past Monday night, and we take that recommendation to the board for their consideration. And so you see that there. And now we're to that engagement piece. And so this is the engagement communication piece. The Facebook Live, of course, that's happening tonight. And then you see we got some campus videos. Leslie and her crew are working with communications at every campus level to roll those communications out at the campus-based level. Social media will be active during this time, newsletters, the website, and all this going, everything you see coming out will be asking you to give that feedback to onthegrow@nisdtx.org. So that's kind of our catch email to make sure we gather all that feedback. We want to make sure we have that feedback to take to the board, to cycle through it and get it to the board so they can review it as well as they make these decisions. And then ultimately take it to the Board of Trustees to vote, to establish those boundary lines. We hope to do that on the 22nd of February. We'll take it to the board and they'll decide whether or not that's an appropriate time to do that or not. Really, we try to get that done before we get to spring break, regardless, because there's a lot of people trying to get their schedules, especially at that secondary level. If you're fifth grader going into middle school or even a middle schooler going into high school, you need to kind of know which school you're going to be at. So we want to make sure we do that in enough time so that everybody can adjust their schedule making properly. So with that, we're going to jump into it. I'm going to try to take this somewhat in regions and work my way up through the different grade levels. And so the first one we're going to look at is that new facility, Berkshire Elementary School, opening up down there between Nance and Curtis in the southern portion of the district. And so you can see you'll see this is a common pattern for us that we'll show. We'll show the current boundary, what those capacities are right now and where they're trending with our growth. And then after, if the recommendation is passed, after that boundary change, then what does that do to relieve those campuses, or what are those new numbers whenever we put that in? So with the current boundary forecast on Curtis, you see it's an 850 campus, Nance is a 650 campus, and Schluter is an 850 campus. The biggest bulk of this move is dealing with Schluter, because Schluter is already got 3 portables out there. They've been growing nonstop, and they continue to have a growth. You can see their numbers just continuing to take off. Curtis, oddly enough, we've only had it open for a few years, and it's already trending in a very fast population as well. And then Nance is right at its capacity too. It's a smaller school. It's 650 students capacity, but you can see they'll be right under that capacity as of next year. So adding that Curtis boundary in there, you can see the numbers there and this kind of mustard or cream colored shape that you see up there. You can see it provides that relief for everybody. Now Schluter's going to take back off because there's just a lot of growth up there around Schluter, which means that eventually we'll have to get a school built on the north side of Schluter at some point to help relieve to the north side for Schluter with all the housing development, Wellington, and other developments that are going in out there. So there's what that does for the Berkshire attendance feeder pattern. I want to just show what that looks like with an aerial, so maybe there's some cues you can take from that read a little bit better than a flat colored map. So you can see here's Berkshire Elementary. You've probably seen the cranes. If you live down in that area, see the cranes out there working. Right there behind the church, just around the corner from the QT. We got the different neighborhoods marked there, and so you can see how that boundary is being recommended to be considered by the board. Here's some of the recommendations that we try to do annually or every other year or however often we have to do this. One, we don't like to send kids away from their school if it's their last year to be in that campus. So if this is your 4th grade year and you were going to be a 5th grader at whatever school, Cox Elementary School next year, we would ask the board to let's let those kids be eligible to remain their last year. Same thing for your the students who would be an 8th grader in their middle school the following year. And then the same thing I said for the high school, we did a little bit different this year because we only have one segment of high school, and we said, let's keep all them together to remain, including those 8th graders that are about to transition in. We don't want them to lose that friend group and be a small segment that gets splintered off. So that was the discussions there around keeping students there if it's their last year. Now the flip side of that and the challenge with that is it comes at a cost of, we can't provide bus transportation because that's extra routes for 1 or 2 or 3 students that stay versus a full bus load. So that's one of the costs that comes at it. And the other thing is we have to draw the line with those students there. We recommend we draw the line and not say it's a full family, because that could be generation. I mean, it could be 10 years. You could have siblings that aren't even born yet that still want to try to do that. And so we have to really try to draw that line there with those existing students that would be in that scenario. So here's our next steps. Again, Facebook Live, here we are tonight in front of you, giving you this information. The campus videos we talked about, if you're in one of those affected areas, whether you're in an area that's staying, but another part of your boundary is moving out, or you're in an area that you're receiving that part of the boundary, we're working with those principals to send out campus level communication. And our communications department is all over that. Get the maps, get you some videos. I think we're going to try to chop up this video so you can go back and watch it, and you don't have to watch the whole thing. You can watch what's specific to your campus. And so we're going to get that to you through the campus levels. We're going to put a lot of social media posts and website, newsletter information out there for you. Everything we send out is going to have that link for On the Grow at nisdtx.org. We want to make sure that we're capturing your feedback there and bringing that back so that we can get that to the board again. If they choose, they're going to see it again on February 22nd, and if they choose to vote at that time, then we'll know where our fate lies for those boundaries.